All right, welcome everybody. It's Craig Carton, of course, with Carton and Roberts, and today is a very special day. For many of you, it's just June 2nd on the calendar, but for thousands and thousands of folks and their families, it's also now Lou Gehrig Day. It's a day to raise awareness and inform people about ALS, better known, of course, as Lou Gehrig's disease. And I know at Yankee Stadium tonight, they're going to be honoring folks with ALS and hoping to raise awareness and, of course, raise some funds for research into this disgusting disease. And joining me today are Lori and Alex. And ladies, it's good to see you, and thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
So Lori reached out to me. Lori's the mom. Alex is the daughter, although you might not know that from looking. They could be sisters, of course. And Alex, unfortunately, has ALS, and I appreciate you being brave enough and courageous to share your personal story with everyone. If you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you first got diagnosed, or even before that, when you first started feeling some symptoms that made you guys go to a doctor?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I was 27 and started noticing my speech was different. And I'm a lawyer, so I talk all day long. And I started seeing doctors. And then last year at 28, after a year of symptoms, I was diagnosed with ALS.
So it took a full year for medical professionals to figure out, quote unquote, what was wrong.
Yeah, so ALS works in that it's really a game of ruling everything out rather than there being like one test to determine it's ALS. So it takes a long time, and it's a shame because your eligibility for clinical trials depends on when you were first seen and had symptoms. So in about 6 months, I'll be ineligible for most clinical trials.
And you'd be ineligible for these trials based on a date that a doctor wrote down on a piece of paper, not based on whether or not the experimental drugs could help you?
Exactly. There is no consideration. Like my physical ability is actually better than most ALS patients at the same point as me, but no one considers that. It's just onset of symptoms.
So just so I understand it, it's based on onset of symptoms, not based on when a doctor officially diagnoses you, because the diagnosis came a year after the symptoms began.
Exactly. So it's right when the symptoms start. So, there are people that go years and years, and by the time they're diagnosed, they're totally ineligible.
And is the thinking that you've gotten too far along in the progression of the disease to be eligible for these experimental drugs, that they'd rather find someone who's closer to symptoms because the drugs might work better?
Honestly, I'm really not sure. I think that's the thought process, but there's so many other things that matter. Like, can I breathe well? Can I walk? Can I use my hands? Things like that. And those, for most trials, those do not matter at all.
If you don't mind sharing, what were the earliest symptoms where you didn't feel right or yourself?
Yeah. So for the first 6 months, the only symptoms were my voice. So I started sounding, for lack of a better descriptor, I sounded drunk a lot. And I would slur a little bit, and there was a lot of just like cut off of sentences and things like that.
So Michelle is here. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Just so our audience knows your background in connection to ALS, or specifically to Alex and Lori's what?
Uh, I have a dog named Gehrig that was diagnosed with ALS in the dog version 20 years ago.
Okay.
And then I fell in love with the ALS community, and now I'm an advocate for them.
How many people ballpark in this country suffer from ALS?
30,000 in the
30,000.
US, 450,000 around the world.
Is there a lack of interest in finding a cure? Are there enough centers out there for
There's not
research?
enough funding. And because it's a rare disease, it's typically small pharmaceutical companies that get involved with it instead of big pharma. And so we lack funding. And so people like Alex don't have access to drugs that are really promising in clinical trials like she would if she were a stage 3 or stage 4 cancer patient. And so that's one of the reasons we want to raise awareness.
So who does have access to those drugs?
It's a really small population. Of the 30,000 people with ALS, only about 1,500 or so have access to trials. The other 28,000 don't. And so they're really dying waiting for these promising drugs. And there's no different outcome today than Lou Gehrig had back in 1939. And that's why we're so excited that Major League Baseball is giving us a forum today.
I know there was a big move politically in what people refer to as right to try laws, meaning if you have a disease like ALS that is 100% morbidity rate, that why not allow people to try a drug that, the worst case scenario? Is that no longer being discussed in DC as far as you know?
So right to try was a really great law for one person, but it doesn't help 28 or 30,000 people. The other thing with right to try is there's no funding for it. So either the pharma company has to pay for it, that is typical with cancer drugs and big pharma. But when it's a small pharma and a rare disease, there's no money to pay for it. So while it's good in its intention, we're trying to pass a law right now in Congress, just got introduced last week, that basically marries the humanity of right to try with the science of the FDA, and is hopefully going to allow thousands of people with ALS get access to those drugs and trials.
You're a lawyer by trade, and one of the things I understand about ALS is that it doesn't have any impact on your cognitive ability. And so inside your head, you're totally fine, no impairment whatsoever.
Exactly. I still work full time right now. But again, that's only gonna last as long as I can type or talk. So I'm so lucky that I'm one of the few that get to keep working, but my time is limited.
Just on a human level, how do you process that?
This was not expected. I had gotten engaged only 4 months before my symptoms started, and my husband's amazing, and I try to look at this and see all the good I got out of it. Me and my mom are closer than ever. I met amazing people like Michelle, and I get to help advocate. So those are all the positives, and I try to hold on to those. But of course, I have my horrible days where I don't get to have kids or grow old, or, I have to die in a few years. That's the truth of it. So it's tough, but I have amazing people around me, and they get me through every single day.
Sorry.
Well, you're so brave.
Thank you.
She's a hero. She's a hero.
No, you are beyond brave and courageous, and it's so sad that there's so little research being done, and why just frustrating to me. So Lori, I respect respect what you're going through, although I can't relate to it for sure. I certainly get it. And I think, you're a brave, powerful, strong woman as well. And that story should be told also. There's so many, I would imagine, family members and friends who step up, knowing as of right now, unfortunately, it's somewhat helpless, but are there and are powerful. And I imagine make every minute of your life you're very positive, and you're as positive as anyone I've ever talked to. And I've talked to a lot of people. And
My mom is like out of this world, amazing. I can't, she has given up her life to fight this for me. And she does that so I can live my life. And me and my husband thank our lucky stars every day for
I love you so much.
Sounds like you found a good man too.
I did. He's amazing.
What's the message to people that might be watching the video?
And Michelle might say it better than me, but there are drugs out there that are helping people, and we don't have access to them. And at the end of the day, although they don't help everyone, they help some, and that should be enough. Some should be enough to get these drugs approved, or at least let me try them.
So it is in part a neurological disorder, yeah?
Absolutely. What happens is your neurons that go from your body to your brain still work. So Alex can still feel pain, but the neurons that go from your brain to your muscles, they disconnect. And once they disconnect, your muscles atrophy. And
Right.
It's hard for me to do calls with people like Alex, but what ends up happening is people end up looking like concentration camp survivors because all of their muscles waste away. And that's what we need Alex to get access to drugs today, so that doesn't happen to her.
What about stem therapy? Is that on the table at all?
Absolutely. In fact, the therapy that we were talking about, it's by a company called Brainstorm Cell. They've innovated the first stem cell therapy for ALS. And there's patients like Matt Bellina, who's a Navy pilot, who after he got this treatment went from sitting in a wheelchair to being able to stand again.
Wow.
There was only 100 people in the whole United States that got access to that drug. And it worked on about 35% of the people, about a third of them. But the FDA said that's not enough, and that they have to go back and do another trial, which will take another 5 years, which will mean it will be too late for Alex and almost everybody that has ALS today.
On a personal level, is there a bucket list? Are there things that you have put down that you want to make sure you get to experience and accomplish before you might not be able to?
Definitely. We're luckily going to Hawaii.
Great.
In September.
For her
and-
30th birthday.
And really honestly, for me, it's about spending time with family. I've traveled a lot. I've had the busiest blessed life. I can't even explain it. I've lived more in these 29 years than people get in their life. So I'm really just trying to savor the moments with the people around me, and maybe go to some concerts and some fun vacations along the way.
What type of music do you like?
I'm obsessed with Ben Platt. Have you
Okay.
heard
I don't know. I don't think I have.
Ben Platt and Casey Musgraves are my two top.
Is that country music?
One is and the other is more like pop.
Okay. I figured you for Chris Stapleton, maybe. That's one of the few country guys I know, to be honest. And how about sports-wise? You and your husband fans of any particular team?
So we're a big fan of doing local games. So Hartford now has the Goats, the baseball team. So we go to those games, and we actually met at a minor league football game. So
Oh, cool. Final thought that you want people to hear from you or know, and I'll make you this pledge that although I know today is a special day, that you can count me in to tell your story and to be a part of whatever the message needs to be moving forward. So just know that I'm in. I'm all in to help you guys in the capacity that can help you through the radio and on TV. But I'll give you guys the floor. Is there anything you want to say or want people to hear? Please go ahead.
I would love somebody out there, anybody, to help our daughter and help these people with ALS. Just, we've got Michelle, who's our angel. She's just, there are no words. We need a Michelle day, Ren's day, right, Alex?
We do.
But Alex's our relationship is so strong, and I would do anything in the world for her. I'd die for her. I would.
I'll leave it at that. I appreciate you letting me into your world a little bit. I think your story needs to be told, and we got to make sure we can tell it, while you can tell it, for sure. If not just for you guys, but for future people as well.